So dear students, today I am going to teach you about the phases of population growth in India. Okay, I will be discussing about the 4 different phases of population growth in our country. And this is the topic from chapter number 1, population distribution, density, growth and composition. So let us start with the phases of population growth. But before we start with the phases of population growth, we must know what is population growth actually, or what does the term population growth refers to. Growth of population or population growth. Okay, what does it mean? Growth of population or population growth is actually the change in the number of people. Okay, it is actually the change in the number of people living in a particular area between 2 points of time. Okay, that means when the population of a country, okay, it changes between 2 period of time. Suppose, for example, in 2001, okay, what was the total population of India? Okay, and in 2011, these are the 2 time periods. Okay, the place is India. Okay, and the time period is 2001 to 2011. Okay, so in between 2001 to 2011, okay, the changes which has taken place in the population actually, okay, this is known as the population growth. And this change actually, okay, either it may be a positive or it may be a negative actually. Okay, but in most of the cases when we study about the population, we find that there is always a positive growth. That means there is always an increase in the population actually. Okay, so population growth is actually the increase. Okay, it's actually the increase in the number of people living in a particular geographical area between 2 time periods. Okay, between 2 different time periods actually. And the population growth or the growth of population is usually expressed in percentage. Okay, we always express the population growth in percentage, that is annual growth of percent. Okay, and the population growth has 2 components. Okay, this population growth has 2 components, that is the natural and the induced growth. Okay, the natural growth of population and the induced growth of population. So what is this natural growth of population and induced growth of population that we are going to study? Okay, so as I said that there are 2 components of population growth actually. One is the natural, another one is the induced. Okay, so what is this natural growth of population, or what do we mean by induced growth of population actually? See, natural growth of population is basically the increase in the population. Okay, the increase in the population which takes place because of the birth rate and the death rate. Okay, means when the population increases mainly because of birth rate and the death rate, that is known as the natural growth of population. Suppose just take an example. Okay, the total every year, okay, the total number of birth rate in our country is 900. Suppose 900 births is taking place for every 1000 people. And on the other hand, just take an example that 500 death rate is 500. Okay, every year for every 1000 of people, 500 is the death rate actually. So here you can see that the birth rate is more and the death rate is less. That means 900 childs are taking birth and 500 people are dying every year actually. So that means every year 400% is getting added. Okay, every year 400% is getting added. That means this 400 people is increasing every year actually. Okay, so this is known as the natural growth of population actually. So natural growth of population is basically it is being analyzed by assessing the birth rate and the death rate actually. Okay, so in order to find out the natural growth of population, we mainly take help of the birth rate and the death rate. Okay, the difference between the birth rate and the death rate is actually the natural growth of population. On the other hand, induced growth of population is expressed by the volume of inward and outward migration of people in any given area. Okay, on the other hand, the induced growth of population is expressed by the total number of migrants, okay, inward and the outward migrant actually, means how many people are migrating to our country and how many people are migrating from our country to the other country actually. Okay, it basically include the induced growth of population. Okay, so whenever we find out the growth of population, the overall or the total growth of population, okay, we mainly take into consideration the induced growth of population actually. Okay, so in this induced growth of population, okay, apart from the birth rate and the death rate, we also take into consideration the migration, that is the inward migration and the outward migration. Okay, so if how many people are coming and how many people are leaving, Okay, we try to find out the difference. Okay, and then we add it with the difference between the birth rate and the death rate, and we get the total growth of population. Okay, so these are the two components of population growth. One is the natural growth of population, and another one is the induced growth of population. And one more term which we need to know here is the population doubling time. What do we mean by the term population doubling time actually? See, the population of a country is increasing at a certain growth rate. Okay, the population of a country increases at a certain growth rate. Okay, so the time taken by that particular population, okay, the time taken by a certain population to double itself, okay, at a certain annual growth rate is known as the population doubling time. Just take an example. The total population of any city, suppose the city name is A, and the total population of city A is 5 lakh. The population is increasing at the rate of 10% per year. Okay, so the time it will take for this 5 lakh population to double itself at the rate of 10% per year is known as the population doubling time. Okay, so suppose the population will double itself at 5 years only, means the 5 lakh population at the rate of 10%, it will double itself, means the 5 lakh population will become 10 lakh in the next 5 years. Okay, so how many years it is taking for the 5 lakh population to double itself at the present rate is 5 years actually. So this 5 years is actually the population doubling time. Okay, so the time taken by a certain population to double itself, okay, at its present annual growth rate is known as the population doubling time. Okay, so these are the different important terms, okay, which we need to know, okay, before we start with the phases of population growth. Okay, so in our country also, the growth rate, okay, that is the natural growth and the induced growth, has influenced the stages of population growth, has influenced the population growth rate. Okay, and not only this, even like if we find out the population data of our country, okay, we will find that the population of our country has also become double, okay, in a particular time period actually. Okay, so this information is very much important to know, okay, to understand the phases of population growth of our country. So now let us start with the main topic, that is the phases of population growth. Okay, so the total population of our country at present is 1210 million. Okay, the total population of our country at present is 1210 million. Okay, but the population of our country did not reach this number, that is 1210 million, in the 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, or 40 years actually. Okay, but it took many years for this population, okay, for the population of India to reach the total mark of 1210 million actually. Okay, and in different time periods, the population of our country, it like the growth took place, okay, with different growth rate actually, with different characteristics. Okay, different factors influence the growth rate actually. So in order to understand, okay, in order to understand the population growth of our country, okay, we have basically divided the phases of our population growth of our country into 4 different phases. Okay, that is the phase 1 from 1901 to 1921, phase 2 from 1921 to 1951, phase 3 from 1951 to 1981, and phase 4 from 1981 till present. Okay, so these are the 4 different phases, okay, in which the population of our country has increased. But it is not that before 1901 the population of our country did not increase. It is not like that actually. Before 1901 also the population of our country has increased. Okay, but we are taking into consideration, okay, in order to study it in a more better way, okay, to get a better insight of the population distribution of our country, we have taken the data of data from 1901 census actually. Okay, so the time period between 1901 to 1921 is the phase 1, 1921 to 1951 is the phase 2, 1951 to 1981 is the phase 3, and 1981 till present is the phase 4. So in these 4 different phases, the population of our country, it increased at a different growth rate and with different characteristics or different factors, it influenced the population growth in this different time periods. Okay, so let us study first about the phase 1. Okay, see, the phase 1, okay, the period from 1901 to 1921. So this phase, or the first phase of population growth of our country, is also referred to as the period of stagnant or stationary phase of population growth. Okay, this period is referred to as the period of stagnant or stationary phase of population growth of India's population. Means during this time, 1901 to 1921, the population of our country, okay, it did not increase so much. Rather, the growth rate of the population was almost stagnant. Okay, the growth rate of population during this phase was almost stagnant actually. Instead of increasing the population, it remained stagnant actually at that period of time. Okay. So during this time period, 1901 to 1921, okay, the population growth rate of our country was almost stagnant. In the population did not increase actually. Okay, and even in the year 1911, okay, in the year 1911 to 1921, our country recorded a negative growth rate of population. That means instead of population increasing, okay, between 1911 to 1921, the population of our country, it reduced. Okay, it got decreased. Okay, and there were certain reasons responsible for it actually. Okay, during 1911 to 1921, the population, instead of increasing, it decreased actually. There are certain reasons. See. So basically, during this time period between 1901 to 1921, both the birth rate and the death rate were high, keeping the rate of increase low. Okay, so during this first phase, okay, during the first phase of population growth, both the birth rate and the death rate were high actually in our country. Okay, means the birth rate was also high, even the death rate was also high, and as a result of which, what happened? The population growth rate was stagnant. Means if 100 childs are taking birth every year, 100 or 99 people used to die every year actually. Okay, so ultimately there was no increase in the population actually. Okay, so this is why during this time period 1901 to 1921, actually the population remained stagnant. Okay, so in this time period between 1921 to 1901 to 1921, okay, there was a poor health and medical services. The health condition, the health facilities of our country was not developed at this time period, 1901 to 1921. The illiteracy of the people, okay, the people were mostly illiterate, and insufficient distribution system of food was there. Means there was not equal distribution of food among all the groups of people, and not only food, but even the other basic necessities. Okay, the basic necessities were not available to the people actually. Okay, which were mainly responsible for a high birth rate and a high death rate during this period. So the main thing which was responsible for a stagnant population growth rate was the high birth rate and the high death rate. Okay, and why high birth rate and high death rate prevailed? Because the medical facilities were not improved, the people were illiterate, and there was not equal distribution of food actually. Okay. So this is the reason that during this time period 1901 to 1921, the population, it remained stagnant, and even during the year 1911 to 1921, the population, instead of increasing, it decreased. There was a negative growth rate of population during this time. The next phase 2. Okay, and the time period of this phase 2 is 1921 to 1951. Okay, 1921 to 1951, this period is referred to as the period of steady population growth of our country. Okay, in this period, the population of our country, it started increasing. Okay, it started increasing steadily actually. Why? Because in this time period, the medical facilities of our country started improving. Okay, the health and the sanitation facilities of our country started improving. So as a result of which, what happened? The birth rate started declining. Sorry, the death rate started declining, but the birth rate was still high because the people were illiterate. Okay, because the people, they considered that having more child is good. Okay, to carry out the agriculture practice and all. Okay, so an overall improvement in the health and the sanitation throughout the country brought down the death rate, and on the other hand, the birth rate was high. Okay, so birth rate remained high and the death rate, it declined. So what happened? There was a steady growth of population during this time period. Okay, improvement in the transport and communication system also improved the public distribution system actually. Okay, and then in this period of time actually, there was a lot of improvement, okay, took place in the transport and the communication system of our country, as a result of which the public distribution system, that is a food distribution system, become quite improved. Now almost like many people of our country, they started getting equal access to this food supply and all. okay, to meet the demand, okay, to feed the child and all. The birth rate remained high in this period, leading to higher growth rate than the previous phase. And in this period, actually, the birth rate it remained high. Okay, and what happened as a result of which a higher growth rate was there. Okay, higher growth rate was there than the previous phase actually. So this is the reason that during 1921 to 1951, the population started increasing steadily, and it is referred to as the period of steady population growth. Second, now see the third phase, which is the most vital phase of population growth in our country. Okay. The phase or the time period between 1951 to 1981 is also referred to as the period of population explosion in India. It is also referred to as the period of population explosion in India. Why? Because in this time period, 1951 to 1981, suddenly the population of India, it increased rapidly. Okay. The population of India, suddenly it increased many fold actually. So this is why it is known as the period of population explosion. Now the case is, why did the population of our country increase during this time actually? See, in this period of time, okay, the birth rate it like caused rapid decline. Okay, means the birth rate in the second phase only the birth rate was declining, but during the third phase actually there was more improvement in the health facilities and all. Okay, so as a result of which what happened, the birth rate started declining more rapidly. Okay, the birth rate declined more rapidly, and the people started becoming advanced, the people started becoming like educated actually. So the birth rate, okay, so what happened, okay, like in the initial phase the birth rate was high actually. Okay, so which caused rapid decrease in the death rate but a high birth rate. Even the birth rate was high during the third phase. Okay, so there was a natural growth of population. Okay, so natural growth of population was one of the main factor. But apart from this, in 1947 India got independence, we all know. Okay, and after the independence of our country, the country got divided into two, that is India and Pakistan. So after 1947, that is after independence, okay, in this time period between 1951 to 1981, we saw that many of the people from our neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, even the refugees from Tibet actually, they came to our country, and this is the reason that the population of our country it suddenly increased during this time, and there was a kind of population explosion actually. Okay, so the main reason in this period of time between 1951 to 1981 is the induced growth of population actually. Okay, not the natural growth of population, but the induced growth of population was mainly responsible for India's population growth. Okay. So it is in this period after the independence that developmental activities were introduced and economy started showing up, ensuring the improvement of living condition of people. Okay, so during this period, 1951 to 1981, okay, our country started developing. Okay, agricultural focus was given on the agricultural development. Focus was given on irrigation facilities and all. Okay, so the living condition of the people started developing. Okay, this was also a reason. And in this phase, both the natural and the induced growth was responsible for increase in the population. Okay, so not only the natural, but the induced growth of the population was also responsible. Okay, because of the migration of the people, many number of people they migrated from our neighboring countries, and this is the reason that the population it exploded suddenly. And the last phase, okay, phase 4, 1981 till present. Okay, so in this phase actually, during the phase 4, fourth phase, the population of our country it started slowing down. Okay, the population of our country it started slowing down. So before, the population was increasing at a very steady rate in the second phase. In the third phase the population suddenly exploded, but in the this fourth phase actually, okay, the population started slowing down slowly. Okay, the growth rate of country's population, though remained high, has started slowing down gradually due to the decrease in the birth rate. So in this phase, actually, after 1981, the overall growth rate of our country it remained high. Okay, that means the percentage growth rate of our country it remained high, but the birth rate started declining. Okay, so because of the decline in the birth rate, okay, the growth rate also slowly it started declining. Okay, and the main causes responsible for the decline in the birth rate in this period of time is the family planning measures. Okay, like the people started becoming more aware about the family planning. Okay, the people become more educated. And even the mean age, that is the average age at marriage of the females were increased. Okay, improved quality of life, particularly education of the female in the country, were also responsible, okay, for the decreased birth rate. Okay, so now the people started becoming aware that small family is more better than having a large family actually. Okay, so now the like people, they started having less number of childs and all. Okay, and not only this, like they become aware about family planning methods and all. Okay, and this is the reason that the birth rate started slowing down, and in the long run the population of our country also started reducing slowly. Okay, so these are the different phases of population growth of our country. Okay, these are the different phases of population growth of our country. So the population of our country has increased mainly in 4 different time periods. Phase 1, when the population growth rate was almost stagnant. Phase 2, when the population started increasing steadily. Phase 3, when the population exploded suddenly. And in the phase 4, the population started declining. And now, in the year 2001 to 2011, the population growth rate has declined a little bit. And even when we will get the new census data of 2021, we will find that even the population growth rate of our country has gone further down actually. Okay, so here we have mainly discussed about how the population of our country it increases in different time periods in different phases. So this is what about this topic, and this is one of the most important topic of this chapter. So thank you.